This happened about 4 years ago, during one of the worst rainy seasons my city had seen in a long time. I was 29 then, working late shifts at a logistics company. I didn't own a car, so I relied on public transport, specifically the last bus that ran past midnight. That night, the rain was relentless. Not the kind that comes down hard and fast, but a steady, soaking rain that makes everything feel colder than it should. By the time I clocked out, most of the staff had already left. The parking lot was nearly empty, and the security guard was dozing in his booth. The bus stop was about a 10-minute walk from my office. By the time I got there, my shoes were soaked through. I checked my phone. It was 12:16. The last bus was scheduled for 12:18 a.m. I remember feeling relieved when I saw headlights in the distance, but as the bus pulled closer, something felt off. It wasn't slowing down the way it usually did. I stepped forward and waved, assuming the driver hadn't seen me through the rain. The bus slowed, then stopped about 20 meters past the shelter. That was unusual, but I jogged toward it anyway. When I reached the door, it hissed open. There were no other passengers inside. That wasn't unheard of this late, but what immediately stood out was the silence. The engine was running, but the interior lights were dimmer than usual. The driver didn't look at me when I got on. I tapped my card. It beeped. Still no reaction. I cleared my throat and said my destination. He nodded once and closed the door. As the bus pulled away, I noticed something else. The route display above the windshield was blank. No number, no destination. I told myself it was probably malfunctioning. We drove for about 5 minutes before I realized we'd passed my usual turn. I stood up and walked closer to the front. "Excuse me," I said, louder this time. The driver finally spoke. "You don't want to get off yet?" His voice was calm. Too calm. I told him he'd missed my stop. He didn't respond. Instead, the bus turned onto a road I didn't recognize. Narrow, poorly lit, and definitely not part of the route. That's when I noticed the locks on the emergency exits. Thick metal ones. Not standard. My heart started pounding. I demanded he stop the bus. He smiled at me through the mirror. "You're safe right now," he said. "Just sit down." I wish I could explain the kind of fear that sentence caused. Not panic, not shock, something colder. I backed away, gripping a pole to steady myself as the bus sped up. Rain lashed against the windows, blurring everything outside into streaks of yellow and black. I did the only thing I could think of. I pulled the emergency hammer and smashed the nearest window. The alarm screamed instantly. The driver slammed on the brakes so hard I was thrown forward. Before he could turn around, I jumped through the broken window and rolled onto the wet asphalt. I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned. The next morning, I reported everything to the transport authority. They told me no buses were scheduled in that area at that time. No driver matching my description was on duty. The shelter camera footage from my stop showed me standing alone in the rain. No bus ever arrived. I don't take the last bus anymore. I was 24 and living alone for the first time in a small apartment complex. It wasn't a bad place. Cheap, quiet, and close to work. The kind of building where everyone minded their business. About 2 months after moving in, the power went out one night during a storm. I lit some candles and tried to sleep early. At some point, I woke up needing water. The apartment was completely dark, except for the faint orange glow from the streetlight filtering through the bathroom window. As I stood at the sink, I happened to glance up at the mirror, and for a split second, I thought I saw someone standing behind me. I spun around instantly. Nothing. I laughed it off. Low light. Half asleep. Easy mistake. But when I looked back at the mirror, my reflection was still facing forward. I hadn't turned back yet. That's when the reflection blinked. I felt my stomach drop. I raised my hand slowly. My reflection raised its hand too. But just a fraction of a second late, I stumbled backward and hit the wall. The power came back on all at once, flooding the bathroom with harsh white light. The mirror showed me exactly as I should have been. Pale, shaking, alone. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next few weeks, small things started happening. I'd catch movement in mirrors when I wasn't moving. Reflections that smiled when I didn't. Blinks that didn't sync. I told myself it was stress. One night, after a long shift, I came home and went straight to bed. I didn't even turn on the lights. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to the sound of breathing, not mine. I opened my eyes and saw myself standing at the foot of the bed, perfectly still, smiling. I screamed, and the figure vanished instantly, like it had never been there. The next morning, I noticed something carved lightly into the inside of my bathroom door. Something that definitely hadn't been there before. Stop looking. I moved out 2 weeks later. The new tenant emailed me months after I left. She asked if I'd ever had problems with the mirrors. She said sometimes her reflection didn't move. I never replied.